and welcome to the Social Power Lab podcast, brought to you by Folks Leadership Group.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Good
Hey,
to see you all.
good to see everyone. This is exciting. Episode 1 of the Social Power Lab. My name is Adrian Deschamps. I'm one of the partners here. There's 3 of us. One of the partners of Vokes Leadership Group. I have with me Dr. Ted Vokes and Dr. Amir Talai. And we work together as a industrial organizational psychology practice. So essentially what we do is we specialize in psychology of people in the workplace, right? As Ted loves to say, if you have people in the workplace, we have the psychology for you. And a lot of what we do is organizational consulting, training, developing leaders, developing workplace cultures, doing different analyses on social power dynamics, which is what we're going to talk about very much. And just, our overall social entrepreneurship mission of putting psychology in the hands of people that can use it and giving a language for social power, which is very foundational to the psychology we're going to talk about. Please, Ted, take it away further.
I couldn't have said it better. That's what we do and who we are. And I'm Ted, and I'm kind of the old guy amongst the partners. And so we've been working together for some time now. We all met at the University of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and have become a practice that does what Adrian so aptly described. So I won't go more deeply into that, but I will bring up that that we are co-authoring a book on the very topic of this podcast. And so, working title for the book, it's all about power, as is the podcast itself. It's all about power, hence the Social Power Lab. And I'm going to bounce this over to my dear colleague, Amir.
Thank you, Ted. Hi, everyone. My name is Amir, and so as Ted mentioned, I'm a partner with Vox Leadership Group as well. And so you guys explained everything, but I just gonna add that what fascinates us is psychology, social psychology, and more specifically, the psychology of social power and like power dynamics in the workplace or not even in the workplace in life. And you'll see throughout these episodes that how power can help us explain almost all human behaviors. If you have two human beings interacting with each other, power is happening among them, and we can see that, identify that, and basically help them use their power in more ethical ways, more constructively, so to speak. So I'm excited to be here, and yeah, thank you.
And this is exciting because, when I first learned about social power, it was so funny to me because I learned it from Dr. Ted Vokes here, when I was his Jedi Padawan once upon a time. And I can't unsee it now, right? Every social interaction that I see between two or more human beings, there's a foundational form of social power that you can see once you have the language and once you have the understanding of the psychology, right? And that's what I think is so cool. If you think of something as small as holding the door for someone in public, right? That's a form of social power, right? That is, it's,
Mediated
yeah,
through power. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
absolutely, right? Just the being nice to another person is power based. Being mean to another person is power based, right? Power itself is neutral. And, it's the intentions behind how power is used that really can, shape whether it's ethical or unethical. So that's what we're going to explore too. And honestly, the best way that I can explain it is that I truly believe that social power is the foundation of social interaction. I mean, I can't see it any other way at this point, which is kind of funny. And I think that's just one of the things that happens when you learn such applicable psychology in your everyday life.
Yeah, and we one of our core contentions is that power is the underexplored foundation of all of social interaction, all of social psychology. I know it's a tall claim to be making, but through this podcast and through the book, we're going to try and demonstrate our point there. Because I mean, my gosh, how could being nice be have anything to do with power? Well, it indeed does. We'll make the case for that. And back to Adrian's point and Amir's point, power is just power. There's 12 forms of social power that we've identified thus far. Three vectors on which all 12 can be deployed. A reward vector, a threat vector, and a neutral vector. And we'll get into all of that because we have what we would consider a very sophisticated model of social power. And it's not there to supplant another model because there really isn't any recent developments that we're aware of a comprehensive understanding of social power. There are some terrific theorists and thinkers out there who we'll reference in the course of our work here, probably starting with our one of our two great inspirations, Bertrand Russell, who was a 20th century English philosopher, who gives us our definition of social power, which we'll come back to. And then the idea of forms of power came from the work of two terrific social psychologists back in the late 50s, early 1960s, where they talked about 5 and eventually 6 forms of power. I mentioned that we have 12 at this point, and it's not really that we've added a 6 more on top of it. We have reconfigured their original model quite considerably, but full kudos to French and Raven, the two social psychologists I referenced, and we'll put notes, to any of the thinkers and theorists that we reference here for anybody who wants to go a little bit deeper into those. But we're drawing upon some brilliant work that unfortunately didn't get traction in the field. And so French and Raven, they come and go from your organizational behavior or organizational psychology textbooks, but nobody really knew what to do with it. Oh, it's brilliant. Wow, there's 5 forms of social power. One day somebody ought to do something with that, and I guess we have. Over the last 20 years, in fact, maybe a little bit more than that, we've been developing this framework, and we apply it. We apply it in the workplace to understand how power is aligned with a mission and how power might be misaligned. And if power is misaligned, we're on the cusp of, quite possibly anyway, the unethical or self-serving deployment of it. It's not an absolute statement because sometimes power needs to be misaligned in order to bring an organization back on track to its purpose and mission. But we'll get into that later. Culture was going to play a huge part because culture is actually the codification of how power is routinely used on a day-to-day basis. So I'm talking a lot. I'm gonna bounce this over to Adrian or Amir to pick up and say something really smart.
I mean, I really do enjoy when you talk a lot. That's, why I almost wanted to name this. Actually, no, I can't say what I was going to almost name this podcast, but it involves Ted's name. We'll put it that way. But yeah, and I think, with, mission aligned forms of power and mission misaligned, that's what's really cool about the neutrality of power, right? And we also talk about ego syntonic and ego dystonic forms of power, which essentially, to put it, it's It's more so the forms of power that you feel comfortable and more natural using is the egosyntonic forms, and the forms of power that you feel, less comfortable with or come less naturally to you are ego dystonic, right? And I think that's really unique because each person can have different power styles, right? Myself, for example, one of the forms of power that you're going to learn about through this journey with us is called referent power. And referent power is essentially, social liking, appreciation, respect. And I love using that form of power, right? I love making people feel good about themselves. I love building relationships with others. I love collaborating and bringing people up, right? That's why I'm sitting here with these two gentlemen, right? Is because the form of power that we've used to establish our professional and personal relationships with each other. It's very egocentric to us, right? We're all naturally people that just really appreciate what others can contribute. And, one of the things about these forms of power too, there's 12 of them, as we said. And, like Ted said really beautifully, is it's not like we kind of, made up some new ones to add. All of these forms of power have been used throughout all of human history,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Like you can think back to hunter gatherer dynamics and you see the 12 forms of power at play. And
Absolutely.
the other parallel that I think was really important of social power theory is that whether it's, and Ted can say this better than me usually, but whether it's children on a playground saying you're not invited to my birthday party, or it's nation states saying you're not allowed to be part of this movement, right? No matter the scale, it's the same forms of power at the end of the day. So I think that's really fascinating as well because it just kind of goes to show that psychology, just the human brain is the human brain, right?
Yeah.
And it's the context in which it's operating and the places and the people that really shape so much of the nuances, right? But yeah, I don't know, Amir, how would you? What's the best way to explain? I guess how power fluctuates through our brain, and then I want to circle back to Ted because I think we should define it operationally as we
Mhm.
go through this journey. But yeah, Amir, how would you
I
explain the
think,
brain?
yeah, I think we should first give a definition so then we can build on
Want to do
that.
that
But
first? I like
yeah, but
I
I
like your
think
style.
no, I think it's important to note that one of the reasons we are doing this is that there are so many misconceptions about power. And I'm sure that the moment that people hear the word power, they see it or hear it in a very negative way. Probably the
Right,
first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, power corrupts, or like
right,
these nasty power holders, I mean, things like that. But yeah, so for some people, power may actually corrupt them, or under certain conditions, it may corrupt, but also in many other situations, we can use power to serve other people, to benefit the society or ourselves. So I want to just, before anything else, emphasize on the neutrality of power. So it's not necessarily negative or positive. It's something, it's a power that could be used positively or negatively. And that's really important to really pay attention to because otherwise we may just have a very cynical view of it, or anyone who has some power, we may somehow want to undermine them and all the rest of it. But yeah, so let's first start with the definition of power, Ted, if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll just quote Bertrand Russell's original definition from 1938. Um, and he said, power is, by whatever means, the production of intended effects. And that sounds perhaps, oversimplistic, but there's layers of beauty in that insight. We add in, so that we'll go forward with a slight modification to his original theory. So our version of his is power is, by whatever means, the production or prevention of intended effects. Because if I can bring about something through human interaction or prevent something that I don't want to see through human interaction. Power is involved in both of those cases, and and none of the forms of power are inherently good or evil, but as Adrian was making the case, the very worst of humanity has been brought about through collaborative exercise of forms of power, and the very most wondrous and incredible achievements of humanity has been brought about through the same 12 forms of power. And so it isn't in the form of power itself, it is in the intentions of the people that are putting it into practice. And I'll add in the wrinkle to that, which is to say, what I think might be a triumph of humanity might be regarded by others who have other objectives as being one of the worst things that could be done, by humanity. So yeah, we'll be getting into that deeply, and the subjectivity of interpretations. We do a lot on where does reality come from anyway, and so much of social reality is in fact power, um, hands down, no question. I'm gonna bounce this back over. Did I get the power definition in there adequately, gentlemen?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Social reality is something that we're really big on as well, which again has everything to do with social power. But that's the kind of conversations that we have, the three of us, is we talk about reality, we talk about the mind, we talk about the brain, we talk about how history and evolution are, giving us evidence of patterns that we can still see today and link to things. Like this is what this journey is about for us, and that's why we're absolutely thrilled that you're going to be a part of this journey with us. And before we get into the brain and power, Ted, I actually want to turn it back over to you because I know you love your introverted self, just loves talking. He doesn't like talking that much, but I love when he talks. Yeah, like we kind of have a social initiative here with this book that we're writing and with the study of social power itself, and it's really cool, and I love the idea. It's a very collaborative initiative. So actually, Ted, if you want to speak to that, I think that'd be a great
Yeah,
direction.
I think yeah, perfect segue into part of our social entrepreneurship efforts here is also to practice something you could call epistemic humility, fancy term for we know we don't know it all. So yeah, we've got a lot of years of training and practice in our chosen field or branch of psychology, but we don't know it all, and we're not the sole originators of the elements of the theory that we're now going to be offering up through this podcast and through the book. But what we want to do is invite those who are interested, who are also theoreticians. The three of us are absolutely theoreticians, but we don't develop theory for the sake of theory. We develop theory really to try to answer questions that our clients have. We don't have any patience for theory that we can't put into practice. So, so yeah, the idea of crowdsourcing, but crowdsourcing for ideas is what's in the preamble to the book, and we're doing this as the preamble to the podcast. That is to say, um, right now we identify three vectors via which power can be deployed: threat, reward, and neutral, and these 12 forms. We There may be a 13th out there floating around, and we haven't realized it yet. And so if in the course of our dialogue, people want to chime in the comments or send us an email or At some point we may do like a question and answer session on live one online, or you send a question in and we answer them in an episode, or you send in an insight and we give you full credit for that insight because we hadn't thought of that. So the crowdsourcing idea is that we can't possibly know everything, and we're not here to uh, put out this theory of social power as a finished product that we're going to dogmatically insist is the right way to think about social power. We really want to continue, well, kind of launch and participate in a small dialogue on power that has been launched by some really wonderful theorists today. We'll reference them as we go. Um, there's yeah, we'll go to that. We'll list them later. But there is a somewhat of a dialogue of power, but we don't have an encompassing theory that can account for the various dialogues that we're reading and being exposed to out there in the popular and academic literature. So that's the idea. If you got an idea, if you got an insight, what we're going to do is either say, yeah, you know what, we thought about that, and that's coming up in a coming episode, and brilliant on you that you realized that, or you saw ahead, you saw implications ahead. Or we may say, wow, gentlemen, we have never thought of that before. And so we're going to give you credit that you came up with that idea or that insight or that nuance. And then, though, like this whole theory itself, it becomes owned by the theory. So, if Amir and Adrian and I were to try to track back who came up with which forms of power and which nuances, we couldn't do it. We've been working together for years, and it's unimportant to us who had which idea. So we invite you into that space, but we want to credit you the first time, but then the theory owns it. We don't. I think the way we like to think of it is that we are stewards of the past thinking on social power. We want to respect it and honor it, and perhaps curators of this emerging theory. And that puts us in an interesting place because if somebody comes along and says, you know what, I got an even better theory of social power that accounts for more of social life than the one that you guys have been, curating into existence and talking about and utilizing in the workplace. And we use it in family, we use it in all of social life. But our day job is in the workplace or workplaces. So, yeah, that's the crowdsourcing. You don't pay anything to throw us an idea, and we'll credit you, or we'll acknowledge that it's already a component of the theory. We just haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. And then we collectively expand the development of this theory past the three of us that have been working on this and putting it into a book form, training in it for years, and developing it. So did that capture it in probably too many words there, Adrian? Go ahead.
No, that's we're doing a podcast, man. I mean, we're
We're supposed to talk, right? Yeah.
we're supposed to talk. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
absolutely. And I'm the only extrovert in the group, so I kind of have this thing where I need to learn not to talk, right? I also like to sing first thing in the morning, whether people appreciate it or not. So, we just are who we are. And one thing that I, you know, I really loved that I feel like I want you to explain, Ted. I love that story about when you were a young lad in school. If you want to share that.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's actually a couple, and I'll um, yeah. So I wasn't one of the cool kids. No surprise. You go on. It's kind of you go and get a PhD. You probably didn't come out of the cool table in high school. Or maybe you did, man, but I didn't. I don't fit that one. And so I was pretty. determined to get some good marks. I wasn't a naturally gifted student or anything like that, but I worked hard, and I wanted to study and get good grades, and I saw it as the way to open up opportunities to do the kinds of things that I wanted to do in life, which is pretty much what I'm doing today. But I didn't quite know back in grade nine this. I in grade seven there was a bullying ring in the school that I was in, and it was well organized for a group of people in grade seven. I don't know what age that is. Is it about 12, 13?
12, 13,
Um,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And this was stellar execution, and I was not the only target by any stretch. Um, and it went on for months and months, and right under the teacher's nose, I would say, and um, he kept hoping that maybe she would curtail the power. I didn't have a language for it, right?
Hmm.
That these
Yeah.
people were engaging in, and maybe one day I'll tell how that worked out, and or how it the sort of the bullying ring broke. But some people with power, the vice principal actually, when I kind of uh, got fed up and just left school after lunch one day, and rode home in the rain, because it was just that's enough. I'm not putting up with this anymore. A group of people swarmed a girl's locker and ripped all of her books out and threw them into the boys' room, right? Because of course she couldn't go in there to get them. So I was like, this is it. And so I got our stuff. We got it put back into her locker, and of course the bullying ring turned on me throughout that whole process. And I'd already been a target, and I was like, I'm out of here. I don't know what to do, but I'm out of here. And that broke the bullying ring in a way, because the vice principal took his legitimate power. There's one of the forms, and he said, this is not acceptable. And he interviewed a bunch of parents, he interviewed students, and that bullying ring was absolutely dissolved in that school because of one person's um, willingness to use his power in a way that could make, we don't have language for any of this, right? Could make the power dynamics in the classroom safe. And by the way, trust and safety is a sense of how I expect you will use your power in relation to me. That's all trust really is how do I expect Adrian to use his power in relation to me? How does he expect that I'm going to use my power in relation to him? And that's a statement of trust or mistrust, or some degree of trust. It's not a black and white kind of thing necessarily. So we're going to talk about all of these dynamics, but that was a pretty seminal moment. But then by the time I was in grade nine, I had my own ideas about what I was going to be doing in school, and that was pretty much studying hard. And the school I happened to be in was very much a school spirit, go to pep rallies, once a month. And these pep rallies were massive and big, and
Yeah.
and I
Wearing
found
the
that.
school colors probably,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
I,
the
I
whole
don't
thing.
miss those.
Yeah, and look, anybody who enjoyed it, I don't take anything away from school
Oh yeah,
spirit and that kind of thing, right? But it was not my thing, and
yeah, me neither.
so I would just go to the cafeteria instead of to the big giant auditorium. I think we had 1,400 kids in the school or something like that, and I would study, and I'd sit there out in the open. And the vice principal, in that case, a very different vice principal, really did not like this. Really, really threatened me, with all kinds of things that were scary to a grade nine. And I did not have a language to say that this is not an appropriate use of your power, right? I didn't have it. Today I do, because we've developed it. One of the things and people will roll their eyes at the thought of theory, and I understand. we don't have patience for theory we can't put into use, into practice. But today I can say exactly how he was uh, misusing his legitimate power to direct me, to shame me, um, for my conduct, and how angry he was because there was some kind of awareness in his part that I wasn't actually breaking. I didn't leave school. I was just studying while the pep rally went on for 3 hours, and but oh, it irked him incredibly. This gets at the idea of the link between power and self-esteem. We do not take well to having our power challenged, and that's what I was doing with him. I didn't have a language for that. I didn't understand. I just wanted to get good grades so I could go to university and study things I wanted to study. But I didn't see the purpose of the pep rally in this regard. Not to say that I didn't play football. I did, but not for the school. I played in the league. It was like a tension between me saying I'm not going to comply with what you want me to do, and I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. And had I had that language in both of those cases, we feel like we will be doing a pretty darn good job of getting the word out on power. If some grade 7 or grade 9 student, maybe they won't know all the forms of power, but maybe they'll be able to say, "You're misusing your power. This power that you have that's been entrusted in you, you're now using in a way that is not for what you were granted it for." And wouldn't that be a powerful thing to say? Speak truth to power is something that this framework and this language of power um, uh, facilitates. It enables us to do things past what political science classically uses: hard power, soft power. And most people get that. Hard power is, what we would call material power, and it's the force of arms or the ability to withhold or grant food and resources and things of survival value. That would be hard power, and soft power would be what other forms deployed in different ways, but let's go to the referent power that Adrian was mentioning: power of liking, loving, respect, admiration, and building good relationships with other nations versus threatening them with war. Or sanctions or a blockade or all of these. So that's hard and soft power. We can break that down according to these 12 forms that are being deployed. And circling back to what Adrian said, it's the same 12 forms of power on the schoolyard as it is at the United Nations, which surprised the heck out of us. We thought there would be different forms of power at different levels of social analysis. As it turns out, it's just brains influencing brains. And when a country does something, it's actually people who have been either amassed the power to represent the country, or there are different ways that you will be given that power. You may have won elections and therefore you can speak on behalf of the country. It's still a number of brains talking to a number of brains, and that has ramifications for those nation states. Or it's, kids in the schoolyard, you can't come to my party, or the G8. Gee whiz, you can't be part of the G8 anymore. Russia, we're now the G7. It's the same. That's inclusion exclusion power. And if you follow along with us, this will all become really, really clear and transparent. Now I'll bounce us to Amir for his insights, please, sir.
Sure. No, no, you're right. So the like in political science, they talk about soft and hard power, but I think that's not maybe nuanced enough to explain all the complexities of the human behavior. So we are not saying that's wrong, but we are really building on that with more nuanced, like forms of power that helps us better explain human behaviors. But the thing is that everyone is using power, and sometimes when we lose our power or gain power, we notice that. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't use power at other times. We are using our power all the time, but The moment that we lose it or we gain it, that's when we pay attention to it and we see it. And I really like that example of like fish, like swimming in water, because a fish is surrounded by water. It doesn't really know what water is. It's not a concept for a fish because it's surrounded by water. But once maybe if they are out of water, they realize that, oh, I was in something that was actually giving me life. So that's the same thing with power. We are using it. We are really surrounded by all forms of like power dynamics among ourselves, with colleagues, with family members, with our kids. But we are so accustomed to it that we don't see it. But again, it doesn't mean that we can't consciously pay attention to it, identify it, and use it in the best way possible. So,
Very well said. And here's an invitation to those of you who think you're going to come back next week. Uh, One of the things we do, we train in power all the time, and then we train in how to utilize it. From an ethical standpoint, from a mission aligned standpoint, and how to recognize when it's being amassed and abused. We do lots of work that way as well. And when we do the training, we tell people up front, you're not going to learn a new form of power. You're not going to learn two, three, four. You're not going to. No, you're already, as Amir said, using these 12 forms of power. We just use it so seamlessly that the brain is wired to exercise power and to respond to other people's power attempts. And that's where, Amir, I'd like for you to come in and talk about the brain, because we're Voke's leadership group, and we go way back on training and leadership. And we now know over the past 20 years that really isn't any such thing as leadership. We're going to make that probably a whole episode on the fact that leadership doesn't exist, but power does. So I think Adrian, you mentioned it, with ego syntonic and ego dystonic exercising of power, and that your power style is actually your leadership style. So leadership becomes kind of a proxy for the thing that we can't talk about because we didn't have this model of social power. Now we do. So when we do training in the workplace or in an MBA program at the University of Windsor, Odette School of Business, or the psychology department, we're bringing in power style and really replacing the idea of leadership with power. And indeed, so much to say on that one. I'll go down a rabbit hole if I keep going on that one. So, Amir, why don't you? If anybody looks at our logo too, you'll see we got a brain. We're applied social scientists, and we have a brain in there, and that's very deliberate because there's been amazing advances in social neuroscience, and we draw from that literature a great deal. So talk about the fact that leadership doesn't show up in the brain, but power does. How's that work, Amir?
yeah, so again, I'm gonna just give a very brief overview of it, and then Adrian, you can add more details since you are more brainy than me. But
Oh Lord.
It's,
but
it's
yeah,
It's
so
true. Just aside, Amir, and I refer to Adrian as the director of brain shenanigans, just because he can rattle off the structures and the functions and the neurotransmitters like almost nobody I've ever met before. So anyway, just to underscore your point, Amir, and
Oh my God.
yeah,
back to you.
You can't see this, but I'm blushing.
yeah. So in our brain, and the reason before, like I explained this, the reason we talk about brain is not that before knowing brain we didn't know power exists or we didn't know psychology, but it really helps us better like grasp the concept. Like we've seen that when we explain what happens to our brain when certain psychological things happen to us, people understand that, and really it kind of validates what we are saying. It's a more tangible way of explaining concepts. And so, in terms of power, now we have two main systems in our brain: reward system and threat system. Now, there are different structures in brain like related to these systems, but we don't need that detail right now. But studies have shown that when people feel powerful, they are basically their reward system becomes activated, the reward system in the brain. And when that reward system or reward circuit is activated in the brain, people show more approach behaviors, they become more motivated, more creative, more assertive. But that can also reduce their empathy or their sensitivity to risk. And also, they've seen that, like, for example, when people feel powerless, that powerlessness increases their anxiety, their caution. But that can also, like, foster more cooperation or perspective taking, because we need to use other people's power when we are powerless. So it's a very good way to show how power is really a double-edged like construct. It's not positive or negative. And again, when you feel powerful, it's great because again, it increases your self-esteem. It puts you in the reward. It activates your reward system, and you become more creative. You want to take action and all that. But at the same time, if you're feeling too powerful, it means that you may not see the risks, or you may underestimate the obstacles or risks because you think you're so powerful and you can overcome everything. So that's the drawback of feeling powerful, and this is seen in the brain. Or again, on the other side, if you feel powerless, obviously we will become more cautious, we may not take risks, we may not be assertive enough. But again, people who are powerless, they tend to try to make friends with powerful people. So that helps us become more collaborative with other people. So I really like how this shows us that power is something that we should really be careful about and make sure that it's not just good or just bad. Like the balanced amount in the right way, if used, that would be great. If not, again, even if you know yourself as a very ethical person, you are likely to use it in an unethical way and not being even aware of that, because we are very good at justifying our behaviors. You may do many like heinous acts and then justify it, and that's like human beings capability. That's a survival capability for us to be able to justify our behaviors so that we don't feel guilt or shame all the time. So it's a very sensitive construct for that reason. And again, I'm happy that we can shed more light on it in these podcasts, hopefully.
Yeah, very well said, man. And that's, yeah, I think it's so, yeah, it's so diverse, right? And when you were saying this, it's so funny. I was thinking of like just examples of power between people. And, you know, one of the books I just finished, Children of Dune, by the way, everyone, I'm a huge nerd. I love science fiction and fantasy. And I'm reading the Dune series right now. And in the first Dune book, or in the movie too, they say this, you know, they're moving to a planet called Dune, right? That's a desert planet. And, you know, the leader in the book says, you know, we need to make an alliance with the people who live on that planet so that we can have desert power, right? And what he was doing is he was recognizing that he wanted to engage in a form of power called subordinate power, to build a relationship and empower, you know, really amplify the expert power of the people called the Fremen that lived on this planet, right? And it was such an interesting power exchange because this person in the book, the character for everyone, you know, Duke Leto Atreides, he was a huge leader, and his strategy was to subordinate to another culture of people, right? And he said, you know, I want to develop power for my house, by building an alliance with you because you are the experts. You understand the reality of this planet, right? And I
Expert
always thought that
power,
was, yeah,
right? Yeah.
expert power, absolutely, right? And yeah, so it's just so interesting, right? So there's examples like that in fiction, and then there's just like just little such light-hearted examples. Everyone who knows me knows that I have a 2-year-old niece who I adore to pieces, and
Oh yeah.
she has complete power over me. And it's really funny because we'll be at my sister-in-law's house, and the little 2-year-old will be on the other side of the house and just start calling my name. And no matter what I'm doing, I will go up and I will get up and go to her. Like if I'm eating, or if I'm, I don't know, like fixing something, or just doing anything, I will drop everything I'm doing and I will go to that little 2-year-old because she just has so much power over me, right? And
Reverent
it's
power.
it's referent power, right? It's pure unconditional love, and it's the need within me to see, you know, what she wants, what she needs, and it's usually something just cute and adorable, like, oh, like what was the one thing? It was raining, right? And she's like, rain, right? It's just it's something little like that, but it truly is power, right? That she is exercising as a 2-year-old that she's not even aware that she has. And I think that is also such a magnificent thing about the framework that we're exploring, is because it's that broad, right? It's that broad where we can look at social and political situations throughout history and modern times. We can look at characters in fictional books and movies, and we can look at the 2-year-olds and the toddlers in our personal lives, and we can see power at play. So that's just one of the things that really sticks with me. And to Ted's story, I actually didn't know the story, Ted, about your grade 7 story. I knew the grade 9 one.
Yeah.
Your grade 7 story was new to me, and that just makes me think too, in terms of the social mission. How many people have found themselves in those kinds of situations, right? Like, I can remember being a kid and having hockey coaches that were just, oh, they were so aggressive with their power, right? And
Right. Yeah.
they were the boss, they were the coach, right? Like, they had the power to bench you, they had the power to make fun of you in front of the other players, unfortunately, right? Again, this is years and years and years ago, but like that, if there was that language of you're using your legitimate power as my coach improperly, and you're causing distress, right? Like, there's so many people that are in those situations, and it's not just sports, it's not just school, it's, I mean, what we do is we go and help people who are in those positions in workplaces, right? Or leaders who are, having trouble with their employees, right? Exercising power unethically, because even though, in an organization you can be, the manager or the CEO, or whatever your position is, the people below you in the hierarchy, the organizational chart, even though you have legitimate power, which is essentially your position or rank within the organization and said hierarchy, they can have other forms of power over you that they can abuse, right? Because there's 12 different forms. It's not just about who's in charge. It's also about who can have the ability to shape reality, right? And as we know, this can be used in good ways and bad ways. Some of the best stories on the planet are, about one person bringing a group of people together and their ability to change the reality of the people, and they overthrow the toxic power holders and whatever, right? You see a bunch of those types of stories. And yeah, like there's so much here that we're going to dig into, which is what's so exciting to me, right? This is just episode 1. This is the first recorded conversation we're having, and I mean, you see us around a bonfire, like you know,
Yeah,
we're
we go
still
deep.
theorizing, right?
Yeah.
And there's just so much there, and everything. Yeah, we want your feedback too, right? And that's how we learn, because there's no ego here, right? And there's no like, like we want to open this up to everyone, right? To
To
understand,
crowdsource. Yeah.
to crowdsource, honestly. And like there's some wonderful lessons in psychology. I told a friend of mine this last night, that he's one of the main voices in my head, because in my moments where I'm over intellectualizing things, he just has this ability to say things that are so human, right? And it'll kind of bring me back down and get myself out of the whole, like, intellectualizing, science, like, too deep in the scientific thinking, and just, kind of use our humanity for a moment to reflect, right? And it's funny because I told him this, and what I was really doing was expressing a form of power he has over me, but it was a very good form of power. It was something that was expressing, like, you're this important to me. Like, in my stressed out moments, you're one of the people I reflect on and hear and think about things that we've talked about, right? And that's a form of reality shaping power and a form of referent power, right? These dynamics, we've only named a few of the different forms, but they can work in interaction with each other interchangeably. And that's what the goal is of really exploring social power, is how can we use it as a tool to analyze what is happening in our world, right? And every situation, like Ted and Amir said, we do it in workplaces. We go to all kinds of industries. I can go on forever, but it's really wonderful that we get to be a part of so many different missions, right? Based on the industry that we go into. And what we can do is, if there's somebody misusing their power, we can provide trainings and consulting and strategy to help realign the way power is being used. We can help people discover their power, help people understand the power that they have that they can use, right? We train a lot of leaders on a lot of just like social dynamics based on empathy and things that we all have as humans, that they don't necessarily realize at first glance, because of just the natural ways of the business world, that like empathy is, it's a very powerful human dynamic, right? And so there's a lot of beauty in
Well,
power can be,
to
and
your
it is.
to your point, without some degree of the awareness of other and empathy playing a big role in that, your power attempts, because just because I'm trying to exercise power doesn't mean it'll work. Your power attempt, if I don't have a solid theory of mind, as in, what's going on inside your mind. I can't read the cues. I imagine you're thinking something or feeling something that you aren't. I'm going to use a power attempt in such a way to influence you. And if I don't have that awareness of others, going back to empathy, Adrian, the ability to imagine what somebody else is experiencing, thinking, feeling, power will be a very difficult thing for people to exercise. And not everybody is as effective at producing their intended effects or preventing the effects they want to prevent as others. And, the people that are very good at will often be labeled as powerful people. But power does not reside in a set of personality traits. There is no trait of power or which you could score high or low on. I think this is an important point, and we're coming up on the end of our hour here to make. Power is not a quality of a person. It is a quality of the relationship the relationships that person's embedded in. If it was a quality of a person, then you'd be born, you'd have your power, and you'd die with with that power. But where power changes dramatically over the course of our lives, one point I really like to make is, if you are a parent or plan to be one, there might be some benefit to you treating your children in a fair, just, and a kind way. And I don't just mean letting them do whatever they want to do, setting limits, doing all the good parenting things that you can do. Because not only do you want to raise those kids to be great members of society and whatnot, but they will also determine which seniors home you go into. You will forever be their parent, but the power changes, right? The power changes dramatically over the span of our lives. So, and we surrender power to our children, whether we want to or not, quite frankly. So yeah, there are a lot of consequences to how we exercise power now, and what that means into our futures as well. Uh, so I just brought that one in there. Amir, do you have anything you want to?
No, just to wrap up, I think just becoming aware of these forms of power, or like how power works, for many people is enough to catch themselves when they're using different forms in the right or wrong way. So you really don't need to become an expert on power to be able to use what you learn here. Again,
Yes.
this very basic understanding sometimes just is enough for people to see that. So,
Yeah, and give us a language with
mhm.
which to speak about it, and to engage in dialogue, mutual reality shaping power coming to the table to say, maybe the way we have been going as a team or a group or an organization or a corporation, needs to shift, right? Maybe what brought us to this point of success thus far won't take us to the next layer. Level. And there's tons of those conversations going on right now around AI and how that's impacting the workplace, and what that means for, well, job security and jobs as we're defining them, and the evolution of work, and that sort of thing. Um, Before I forget this point, for those of you who do plan on sticking with us and exploring power with us as we go, there is an exercise that we invite people who, when we're training in power, to do. It's homework if you choose to do it, and it's to watch a particular film. We have two Hollywood films, originally two. I'm going to get into the third shortly. Um, that we suggest to people, because whether they are historically accurate or not, one is 13 Days. It's about the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we came very close to blowing ourselves off the planet back in 61, 62. And then year, forgive me, escapes me. And it's about the White House during the standoff over Cuba. And then there's another that we recommend, and again, it's a Hollywood film. It's called The Queen. And it's about what happened after Princess Diana passed away, and it's the relationship and the dynamics between then Prime Minister of England, Tony Blair, and the royal family, particularly the Queen. Now, I don't know if the storylines and the events in those are historically accurate, but when I watched those films, I said, that's how power works. That is an authentic expression of how power dynamics unfold between human beings. So it's social psychologically accurate. So those are two films that what you can do is you can watch one, and then you learn about power. And this is what we do in the training. Okay, so we introduce power like we have with all of you today, and then say, now watch the film, come back, learn power, and then later on watch the film again. The reason you watch the first time is you get the storyline down, and it's okay. I know what happens. So why am I going to watch the second time? Because now you'll be equipped with the lens that power offers you to see it unfold before your eyes. And you were always seeing it that way, but now you are saying this is a power attempt, and that failed. Tony Blair is trying to influence the Queen in this particular way, and that power attempt fails. But he tries in another way, and that power attempt, bringing about his intended effect, comes to fruition. So you can talk about and see power, as Adrian said earlier, unfolding right before your eyes. We use those two films. There are many others, but we like them because they're, again, social psychologically accurate depictions of power. And the stories are both interesting. But then I would do that when we're teaching at the University of Windsor. We're not full-time faculty. We teach there, usually after hours and have fun working with undergrad and graduate students. And we'll say, watch one of these two films. Next week you're going to learn about power, and then you watch the film again. And after they learn about power, so many of our students have come up to us and said, "Oh my God, Dr. Vokes, have you seen Mean Girls?" And I was, no, I haven't. And now of course, I have. Um,
And now he
and
knows all about,
oh, on
on
Tuesdays
Wednesdays we wear pink,
Wednesday,
right? All
yes,
the analogies.
yeah. I now I'm an aficionado of Mean Girls. It is a more playful kind of exploration of power, but that came to their mind instantly was Mean Girls. And so there's the third film that you could watch. Those are just the suggestions that we come up with. And it tends to be kind of a fun way to re-see the social world. Um, and I got a communication on LinkedIn from a former MBA student who's been out there for many years now. And he said, hey, Ted, my boss still takes me to meetings that I don't need to be at just to explain to him the 7 forms of power. And I said, oh my gosh, it's been a while. So let me send you our latest brief on where we are with power today. So we're up to 12 forms. And it's been reconfigured quite a bit since then anyway. But hey, he had 7 forms, and he was able to explain to people what transpired, what unfolded, what power attempts were effective, what power attempts failed, and maybe what they can do next time to exercise power more effectively towards their intended effects. So yeah, that's just a little fun thing that a lot of people come back and say, yeah, I'm glad I did that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I personally love that exercise, and we've done it before where I think it was during COVID. I think we actually like had a
Yeah, we had a watch party for our
online
students.
class. We had like a screening of it, right? Like where
Yeah,
everybody came on Zoom or whatever, and
yeah,
we screened the movie, and it was really cool.
yeah.
And
We'd stop it periodically and let people. They'd already learned the forms of power in class,
yeah,
and
and they'd point them out.
yeah,
And power. It's so funny how power changes over time, and power in the relationship. And I'm gonna make Ted cringe for a minute, but there was a time where I was always saying, Dr. Vokes, Dr. Vokes. I wouldn't call this guy Ted, and he would be like, just call me like I'm Ted, and I'm like, nope, you're Jedi Master Dr. Vokes, right? And and it's funny because as I still remember when Ted invited me into this practice a while ago. It was one of the things that he said to me was, okay, so this whole professor student relationship is done, right? Like you're my colleague now. Like we're gonna talk to each other different. Like you were establishing the new power dynamic, and it was really cool, right? And it was, what's even funnier about it is that even though that was established, it still took me a bit, if you remember,
yeah, I do. Yeah,
to start just calling you Ted. And now I'm just like, hey bro, what's up?
yep, yep.
Right, we call each other names, whatever. So yeah, so that's cool how power works in that way too, right? It exists in the relationship between people, and the relationship, the way that it evolves, is based on power, right? It's
Hmm.
the power dynamics evolving themselves. And yeah, before we wrap up here, Amir, anything you want to say in closing?
No, no, just excited to explore this concept
Hmm.
further in our future sessions.
Yeah, Ted, any closing
There's,
points before we?
there's there's so much to come. We will have a little bit more guided explorations of the forms of power to bring to the table. the linkages between power and self-esteem, they co-vary, and the implications for that. We'll be exploring how people with, we've got expertise in our practice. Adrian is the director of brain shenanigans, but Amir is affectionately known as Dr. Dark, because he is an expert on the dark tetrad, the four dark personality traits, and he is the driver and the explorer and developer of the dazzling tetrad, the inverse of the dark tetrad, and that has implications for how power is used as well. So we'll be bringing all of that to the table and listening to your input and speaking about that here too, if we have your permission to do that. And again, we'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections on it, because as far as we are concerned, this is the biggest hole in the social sciences and humanities,
Yeah.
bar none, because we'll make our case. We got to prove it to people. We're theoreticians, but we don't just make stuff up for the sake of making it up. And we'll say that all human interaction is unfolds through this lens of power, even when it is collaborative and mutually supportive and produces amazing outcomes or just fun outcomes, right? Believe it or not, if you're going out on a Friday or Saturday night with your friends, that's all about power. And there is a mission there. Um, so we'll have to make that case, but we see it very much through that lens, and it's very collaborative in all likelihood, unless somebody says, I don't want to go to that club, and everyone else says, well, I do want to go to the club. Well, then they're doing exclusion powder on themselves. I'm not going with you guys. I'll catch up with you later. There may be no hard feelings about it. But where that group is going isn't the intent. They're going to fulfill the intended effect that I have for my Friday or Saturday night. And we can do that, rather seamlessly without thinking about power. So when we say it's all about power, which is the working title of the book, we don't mean it cynically. We are mindful of, again, the very best of humanity and the very worst of humanity is all produced through the same forms of power, and it's the ends to which you're putting it. So we'll be bringing in the dark side of humanity a great deal here too, because we have the expertise right here at this virtual table that we're all sitting at, to talk about those who are highly motivated to amass more power, and when they get it, to exploit it and exploit other human beings in the course of that. And we do a lot of work like that that focuses on that in workplaces where we're called upon to look at those things. So then there are solutions to that, in not
Hmm.
only seeing power, but also becoming mindful of the power that you do have, and where you want to expand it. I mean, if you want a promotion at work, you're interested in increasing your power. If you're getting a degree or a special qualification or a certification, you're expanding your power of various forms. And there's many other ways to do it too. Um, uh, oh, and I just want to add Dune. I've seen little bits of it, and I've seen it deconstructed from through the lens of power, not by us, but by a very very astute individual who's doing sort of a dialogue about the film, and I was hooked.
Wow.
It would be another very good series to explore power through. And we're going to bring in literature because Adrian is a screenwriter and whatnot, and understands narrative and story, and stories don't exist if there isn't power dynamics, quite
Mm.
frankly.
Yeah.
Nobody watches that or reads that because it's, quite frankly, incredibly boring.
Yeah.
We're gripped by power. Our brains are wired to assess on a preconscious level the power that we're operating within. So we're putting a lot of promises on the table, and I am absolutely confident that we're going to be able to deliver on them. But we can't do it like quick, because this is
Yeah.
a pretty deep theory that underlies all other social theory. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, really well said. And I think I'm gonna make Amir watch Dune with me, but that's for another day. But final closing points just to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our first episode. It means the world to us, and we're here to study social power with you and understand the social world through the science that we practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we're Vokes Leadership Group, Industrial Organizational Psychology Practice. Again, I have Dr. Ted Vokes, Dr. Amir Tala'i with me. I'm Adrian Deschamps. We're all the partners of Vokes Leadership Group, and we hope to see you again and hope to hear from you. So please feel free to go to our website at vokesleadershipgroup.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, Vokes Leadership Group, also individually. And yeah, please, like and subscribe, comments, all that good stuff.
And sorry, Adrian, I was just going to
Yep.
interject. You don't just have to follow. If you send us a connection, we're going to accept it. Like we want to know who you are, and
Yeah, quite
so
frankly.
you follow, yeah, please, but connect. Like just push the connect button, and I'm going to say yes and say hi. Thanks for connecting with us. We manage our own accounts this way, so please feel free to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we just can't wait to talk more about this on episode 2.
Yep.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and gentlemen, as always, thank you
Thank you.
for having a great conversation here with me. Appreciate that so much.
Thank you
Pleasure,
all.
pleasure as always. Hey,
Thanks.
All
see
right.
you, see y'all next week.
Yeah, and we're Vokes Leadership Group, and we're always standing by. So we'll
Well
see
said.
you all next time.
Thank you for listening to the Social Power Lab podcast. Make sure you join us next week as we continue to uncover the hidden dynamics of social power all around us, because every conversation changes the world one interaction at a time. You can listen to the Social Power Lab podcast on Spotify under Social Power Lab, on YouTube under Social Power Lab _VLG, and on LinkedIn under Vokes Leadership Group. Thank you and have a wonderful day. This podcast was produced by Trenton Vokes. The theme was produced and written by Adrian Deschamps.